Johnny Carson revealed the 9 Golden Age guests who were actually evil. For 3 decades, Johnny Carson ruled late-night television. Millions of Americans tuned in to The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson not just for his humor, but for his uncanny ability to read people, to charm them, to expose them, and sometimes, to silently judge them. But before his death in 2005, Carson reportedly told close friends something that would shake Hollywood's golden age to its core. Not everyone who sat on that famous couch was who they seemed. In a series of taped conversations and letters unearthed years later, the King of Late Night revealed his secret list, 9 Golden Age guests who, behind their charming smiles, were actually evil. "I saw sides of people that the cameras never could," Carson once said. "Some of them were angels on screen, and monsters backstage." Keycap 1 Frank Sinatra, the charming tyrant. Carson adored Sinatra's music, but privately, he feared his temper. When the cameras were rolling, Frank was smooth as silk, Johnny confessed. But off-camera, he could turn dark in seconds. Carson recalled a night in 1973 when Sinatra demanded that no one look him in the eye backstage. "He made a stagehand cry for bringing the wrong brand of whiskey," Johnny said. Though they shared mutual respect, Carson later admitted, "Frank was a genius, but he believed fear was power. That's evil to me." Keycap 2 Joan Crawford, the Queen of Cruelty. Hollywood adored Joan Crawford's elegance, but Carson saw her cruelty. "She walked into the studio like a queen and treated everyone like servants," he wrote. During her 1967 appearance, Crawford reportedly berated a young makeup artist for touching her hair, then smiled sweetly as the cameras went live. "It was terrifying," one crew member recalled. Carson later told a friend, "She could charm millions through the screen, but she was ice underneath. I've never seen a colder soul." Keycap 3 Bing Crosby, the Hidden Darkness. To the world, Bing Crosby was America's Christmas voice. To Carson, he was something darker. "He smiled like Santa Claus, but I heard things that would make your blood run cold." Johnny never forgot the whispered rumors. Crosby's harsh discipline toward his children, his obsession with control. After an uncomfortable backstage encounter, Carson wrote in a note later found among his papers, "Bing talked about fatherhood like he was raising soldiers, not sons. He believed fear kept people loyal. That's not family, that's tyranny." Keycap 4 Zsa Zsa Gabor, the Mistress of Manipulation. Zsa Zsa Gabor was always a glamorous guest, but Carson saw her manipulative side. "She could flatter you while stabbing you in the back," he told a producer. Johnny remembered how she once flirted her way into a special segment, only to later humiliate a junior staffer who accidentally spilled water near her gown. "Everything she did was an act," Johnny said. "Even her kindness had a price tag." He once joked on air, "Zsa Zsa never leaves a room empty-handed." Years later, he admitted that wasn't a joke at all. Keycap 5 Bob Hope, the Smiling Opportunist. Bob Hope and Johnny Carson were late-night legends, but behind the smiles was tension. Carson once described Hope as, "the most calculated man I ever met." "He'd come on the show pretending it was all fun," Carson said, "but he demanded control over every word, every laugh." Johnny also hinted at Hope's arrogance toward younger comedians. "He couldn't stand not being the funniest guy in the room," he wrote. When asked if he respected Hope, Carson simply said, "I respected his hustle, but compassion? He didn't have much of that." Keycap 6 Lucille Ball, the Perfectionist Demon. America's sweetheart, Lucy, was also one of Carson's most feared guests. Lucille was brilliant and terrifying, he once admitted. She wanted perfection, even in chaos. During one rehearsal, Carson claimed Ball screamed at a cue card holder until he quit on the spot. Yet when the show began, she transformed into that lovable redhead audiences adored. "She turned rage into comedy," Johnny said. "That's talent, but it's also a mask." He later joked darkly, "Lucy didn't just break the fourth wall, she burned it down." Keycap 7 Dean Martin, the dangerous charmer. Dean Martin's cool, drunk-on-life persona captivated America. But Carson saw the cracks beneath the laughter. Dean was charming, but reckless, Johnny recalled. He'd flirt with danger like it was a game. During one memorable night, Martin allegedly humiliated a young stagehand for stuttering, making the audience laugh at his expense. Carson never forgot it. "He could make cruelty look like comedy," Johnny said. "That's what scared me." Still, Carson later added with a sigh, "He was damned funny. That's the worst part. You still wanted to like him." Keycap 8 Elizabeth Taylor, the master of control. Carson admired Elizabeth Taylor's power, but he saw how she wielded it. "Elizabeth could own a room in seconds," he said. "But she didn't just want attention, she wanted obedience." He described her as Hollywood royalty with a general's temper. During her 1970 appearance, Taylor reportedly demanded the studio lights be changed 5 times and refused to sit until she was satisfied. "She could melt hearts with a smile," Johnny said, "but you'd better pray you didn't cross her." Keycap 9 Marlon Brando, the dark genius. Of all the guests Carson ever hosted, none unsettled him like Marlon Brando. "Brando was unpredictable," Johnny said. "He could look at you like he was reading your soul, and then destroy you with one sentence." Their 1973 interview became infamous. Brando barely spoke, then suddenly kissed Carson on the mouth on live TV. But what happened afterward was worse. Backstage, Carson claimed Brando insulted the crew, mocked the writers, and called television a circus for clowns. "He was brilliant," Johnny admitted, "but there was cruelty in that brilliance. He enjoyed breaking people." Skull behind the laughter. Carson's private judgment. For years, Carson kept silent. He knew Hollywood was built on illusions, smiles, charm, applause. But as he aged, he began speaking more candidly about the industry's moral rot. "People thought I was cynical," he said. "But I just saw too much." He claimed that for every genuinely kind guest, like Jimmy Stewart, Doris Day, or Robin Williams, there were others who hid darkness behind the laughter. Carson's longtime producer, Peter Lasley, once hinted that Johnny had a mental blacklist, names of people he refused to ever have back on The Tonight Show. He'd smile on camera, Lasley said, but as soon as the segment ended, he'd say, "Never again." High voltage. The truth comes out. In 1999, shortly before retiring, Carson gave a private interview to a journalist friend, never published during his lifetime. In it, he was asked what he had learned from interviewing thousands of stars. His answer was haunting. "I learned that fame doesn't make you good. It just makes you louder." He said that the 9 people on his list weren't evil in a supernatural sense, but in a human one. Evil, he explained, is what happens when you start believing the world owes you love, no matter what you do to people. He admitted that seeing so much ego and cruelty changed him. "You stop trusting smiles," he said. "You start listening to what people don't say." Heartbreak. The price of knowing too much. Carson was known as private, almost reclusive in his later years. Friends said his cynicism came from witnessing the duality of fame, the kind that turns heroes into villains. He once told a close friend, "Every time I said goodnight on air, I wondered how many of those people really deserved the applause." After retirement, Carson rarely spoke publicly again, but according to biographer Henry Bushkin, he left behind journals filled with reflections, some bitter, some deeply philosophical, on human nature. He believed everyone wore a mask, Bushkin said, but some people forgot to take theirs off. Candle. Legacy of a truth-teller. Johnny Carson's confessions didn't make headlines until years after his death. When excerpts surfaced in a posthumous collection of Hollywood writings, readers were stunned, not by the names themselves, but by how brutally honest he had been. He wasn't trying to expose anyone, Bushkin wrote. He was trying to explain why he couldn't love Hollywood anymore. Carson's words remain chillingly relevant in an era where celebrity worship still thrives. "We put beautiful people on pedestals," he said. "Then we're shocked when they look down on us." Crescent Moon Epilogue. The Man Who Saw the Shadows. In the end, Carson wasn't bitter, just realistic. He understood that every light in Hollywood casts a shadow. "I don't hate them," he said of his infamous list. "I just wish they'd been kinder when the cameras were off." Those who knew him best said Carson never sought revenge or gossip. He simply wanted to tell the truth, a truth only a man who'd looked into thousands of faces could understand. "If you stare at fame long enough," he once mused, "you start to see what's hiding behind the smile." And with that, Johnny Carson, the man who made millions laugh, left behind a final, haunting message about the darkness beneath the Golden Age's glittering facade. Glowing star, some people say laughter is the best medicine, Carson wrote in his final note. But sometimes, it's just the best disguise.